isn't in the building zone here. I don't want to say it wrong again. So
It'd be
this
outside the
is-
buffer zone, it's a little
this
triangle, so
right
every
here.
inch is,
So it'd be right
is
this,
20 feet
but this is inside the building, right here.
outside the buffer zone. So it's maybe,
Yeah.
what?
It's on the line of
Yes.
the building area.
Yes.
it
So the
would
fence itself is what,
technically be
maybe, I don't know, is that 40 feet by maybe 35 feet, only maybe 10 or 12 feet from the original fence block.
Okay. Yeah.
You're going by this one,
How much?
Harry's going by the.
For one house.
Yeah.
That's about, yeah, that's about 20, and that's another.
18, something like that.
Yeah.
I was
Is yours
going
the
by
scale
the
too
fence.
small? Is your small dog the scale too?
Yeah,
Really?
this is about 1 inch 20 feet.
Okay.
So it looks like it would be tall, yeah. You could say about 20 to 25 by about 18 to 20.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then on this end, is it the same?
Well, I just placed
Yeah, you
it
just-
there, so
okay.
we would.
We could even start from back here, depending.
Like,
I think what we'll do is we'll look at the topographical of how the land, and how easy to get the fence in, with the fence further
Because there's
over.
a big
There's like
bush
an
right
old,
there.
big bush there, an old like a foundation there, some stone. So we need to go inside that anyway, just because it's kind of easier
Yeah.
for the fence further in anyway, I'm thinking, than where it's proposed. We would
But we
be
would,
sure-
whatever we took care, we would replace, or
Yeah,
even
Even
more
more.
there.
'Cause that can be used anyway, so.
Yeah.
That's buffer zone, right?
Okay, you want me to
There,
take
yeah,
this off?
yeah, because it basically would follow that line,
Right.
which is the buffer zone line.
Right, so we would still move it in, so.
Rebecca, did you have thoughts?
On this, I sort of, I mean, I sort of pictured this when we were talking on the phone, corresponding with one another. But, I mean,
Let me take this off so you can see this part. I don't know if that's good. What I
so
was-
basically it's, you're bumping this out the same amount that you'd be pushing that in.
Yep.
And they're both in the buffer, am I seeing?
This is in the buffer zone.
That's in the
Right
buffer.
here is not, so it would be really just right here that's in the buffer zone, if I'm saying that correctly.
That's outside the buffer zone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Aha, it's mostly outside.
Right, right, outside the buffer.
Right. So it's, I was just looking at it as if we took that, but we would, we're still going to go in further over this end.
We need to start from this point here and just taper it or
Right.
something, whatever it takes to
Right.
make it work. Put the fence in as easy as possible.
Because if you see where the fence is here, it's not that much room.
Right.
I think it's 40, was it 40 feet from
From
the
the
well to,
house.
was it 40 feet from the well to the corner of the house?
Yeah.
I think,
But then with the retaining wall, it's,
to me, because then the well would be fenced in.
right.
So I think it would almost, in my opinion, be better, because then it almost sets a limit of work
Right, so
for the well.
sometimes you wouldn't service the well,
Right.
it's inside the fence.
Yeah.
Right.
That makes sense, I guess, yeah.
Right, and you're still making up for that
Right.
loss of buffer.
Sorry.
So, I mean, that's how I look at it.
I have no problems with this.
Yeah, that's fine.
Great.
I also appreciate you coming forward and
Oh, sure.
and mentioning it.
Yeah,
and
right.
asking
we
to
wouldn't
ask
just
you.
do that.
So
I'm
thank
sure
you.
you get people that do well, that's fine.
Don't ever see that, just put the fence there.
Yeah, right.
So should we talk about the other confusion I had? about-
Right, so the other confusion there was, I think, in,
The barrier.
uh,
Oh, you're not talking about that?
No, that's not what I'm talking
Okay.
about.
No, good morning.
That's okay, so there was a discussion about straw wattles and the fabric silk
Yeah, that's what I'm
barrier
talking
needed.
about, this, okay.
Right, so I'm just gonna talk about that
Okay.
now, that wasn't what I was gonna say. but-
Sorry.
No, it's okay. And so, after talking with Mass Wildlife, they had stated that it was only necessary to have both if the project wasn't completed before April, when there's
If it was,
Electricity.
if it was before November 1st.
Yes.
Yeah,
After March 31st,
Yeah.
something.
Right. Due to different species crossing being more active during that time period. So they had said that the fabric silt fence was okay to have just that for erosion control. I sort of said, that sounds okay, but I think it should be a discussion if there are any concerns or if we would like to see shrub wattles included as well. That's up to you, but I thought it was sufficient.
What is the construction timeline out there?
well, we're hoping to start
This
this
week?
week.
Mhm.
And we're waiting for the well to be, the water to be tested, and then we're good to get the permit. So that will go in, we could put it in tomorrow if we wanted to, if we got the approval tonight, or knowing what we were going to do. The silt barrier can go in tomorrow.
You think we'll be able to find out by April of next year?
We're hoping, yes.
All the outside work will be done.
All the outside work will be done.
We're not gonna have, looms out, we're not gonna seed it yet, obviously, but all the construction will be done.
Yes.
Okay.
We're hoping.
And if it's not, then we would have to
They're
put the
definitely, we need to
wattles in.
encase around the whole project like a horseshoe. That was the stipulation with
Right.
the Division of Fish and Wildlife. You have to make all the way around it, and then we have to have a gate that's open, that folds down and folds up of the
Right.
silt barrier. But
To avoid all
we're gonna
that.
try to get, my builder that we're working with, said, no problem getting it done before
Yeah.
March 31st, so. It'll save some money and save some time, and hopefully, get it done sooner than later. That's our plan.
And the Wildlife and Fisheries said we wouldn't have to put this in until the project was done, the split rail fence.
Right, it's all the last things,
Yeah.
yeah. Because you'll have the barrier in the interim.
Right. So we, before we order the, want to get the right supplies
Yeah.
instead of doing it twice.
And then in terms of, well, does anybody have anything?
You say, if you're comfortable with it, it seems,
I
I mean,
am.
sure it's fine for
Okay.
wildlife, sounds like it's fine for the
Some actually
wetlands
said
as
the
well.
wattles are worse for the turtles.
Because they crawl over.
And
Yeah.
when they go on their back.
Yeah,
So,
but part of it is we have to think about the wetlands.
right.
Right.
Seems like it would be sufficient, but I don't know if there's other questions, thoughts, concerns.
And then once that's in
Well,
place, you
but,
guys will come out and look at it, correct?
What happens, I mean, if something happens, like weather or something delays the project unexpectedly or something like that?
The frame is, they go
first.
all year long, they go right through the
No,
winter.
no, I'm just
Right.
saying, what if the project is like
Well, then,
we would
unexpectedly
have to-
by March 31st, we
We
would
would have to
encase it all.
encase
do
it
everything.
and do whatever needed to be done.
Yeah, if for some reason there was a delay, if something happened in the year, we would definitely go with the Division of Fish and Wildlife and do what they recommend. They want everything closed up, so at that point, we migrating, they get stuck in the fence this way.
Yeah. they'll-
So we would
Okay.
encase the whole
Right,
land,
right.
because that's what has to get done. We realized that when we bought the lot. We thought we'd be building by now, so we thought
Yeah.
it was already encased.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So, yeah, we'll definitely
there's always delays.
do the right
Yeah.
thing.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Okay. And then the other thing was, and this is sort of our call in terms of how we want to document this, because it is in the buffer, so we can do an NOI. Because it's minor, we can also go that route and say that just have an erosion control inspection, and have it be under minimal disturbance, which means they wouldn't have to file. But in terms of the mowing, that's sort of what I think Brian suggested at the last meeting, at 2 meetings ago, that they should file for, just so we have it on file. But after talking with Jackie, she said a written approved document that just, basically for their file and our file, that's not necessarily an NOI, but still something that notes this is the agreement. But I wasn't sure what the commission wanted to do on that.
So it hasn't officially, we haven't officially gotten a filing yet? You-
So
Go ahead.
we're in the process of doing the filing.
Yep.
Because last time it was contingent upon if they were moving the house or not.
Right.
So now that was adjusted on the NOI, and now it's just the fence and it's the mowing. But the mowing, the reason why you would do something for that is it's not lawn, it's meadow being converted to a path to access the barn.
Gotcha, so,
So a lawn would be exempt.
right. Yeah,
I know.
trying to, so, there's an order of conditions for everything else.
There is not, you know, conditions, because
Gotcha.
our house is
Right,
outside
side,
of the buffer.
all right, so it's a question of, is it basically just an RDA for the fence
Right.
and the mowing, but you
Yeah.
say even the mowing might not need to go on the RDA, it could be,
Right. Jackie and I both, after viewing the bylaw and the wetland regulations, because it's minor activity, she said it might suffice just to have something written up, which I did type up, just saying,
This is
proper
where it's
erosion
gonna be.
control, no further disturbance into the buffer,
Mhm.
because most of your work is outside of the buffer,
Right.
if not all of it, aside
Right.
from the mowing.
Makes sense. Path of least resistance. And you guys have been great.
Thank you.
Running all this upfront work, so.
I mean, it's not mowing, it's so much to mow and not mow anyway. After all this.
Right.
Although ticks have been crazy lately.
Yeah.
Ticks have been brutal.
yeah, it's not gonna stop, sorry. Um, Other thoughts?
The letter sounds sufficient.
Karen, do
Yeah,
you feel?
yeah, I think that's fine.
All right, so,
You know, when I look at this, I think about the terrain.
Mhm.
You've got this hillside here, and then you've got a lot of protected land, and just as you move forward, just keep that in mind, and that's what I'm thinking about. But it should be documented that you went through this effort, and you came here, and that there is a resource there that we all are in agreement that we want to protect.
Okay, so the letter is a confirmation of your work at Lot 1, Bon Hill, Bolton, Mass. The proposed work will be outside of the 100-foot buffer, with the exception of the minimal footage with the fence, and the exception of approved mowing / path maintenance around the barn shown on the updated plan dated 2016, which is here and which is what is in front of you. And then basically just says this for your confirmation and future reference in case there's ever a need, and that the mowing and maintenance had been approved previously by the commission.
Okay.
I don't know if you need to make like a motion. I don't know.
I don't know, yeah, well, because we don't have a filing, right?
Right.
I can make a motion to close the public hearing.
Yeah, okay.
And then I don't know if we need to vote to sign, we can just put forward a motion to approve and sign the letter as drafted,
Okay.
right? The letter of understanding, we'll call it maybe?
Yeah, sure.
Sure, okay. I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing for Lot 1, Bon Hill Road.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye, so closed. I'd like to make a motion that we approve and sign the letter of understanding between the Conservation Commission and Lot 1 Bon Hill Road as drafted.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
So that's just, I don't think you need to sign both, but.
yeah, just sign
That's
one
just for
underneath.
us.
Once we get our permanent street address, do you want me to let you know what that will be? Just to add to the file, or? I don't want to confuse it
Probably
anymore.
couldn't.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just let
Okay.
me know what.
Okay. And then, so if this silk area goes down tomorrow, how long does it take to get an inspection typically?
Monday.
Not at Thanksgiving, really?
Yeah, next Thursday.
Just call the office and I'll make sure your time's okay and what works best for you. And either I or Linda are
Okay. So we signed this stuff right now?
Now, you guys
guys don't sign
sign
the
when
permit.
from the building department, right?
that you will have to bring to town hall and I will sign it
Okay,
Okay.
at that point.
nice.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
It's been a long road, thank you,
Get
appreciate
closer.
all your hard work.
Yeah, we'll
Yeah.
have
So-
to drive by next time and see how it goes.
Is this our last time here, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
We are looking for volunteers. Can we get settled
Well, maybe
in?
we'll
Can we
make
get
it
settled in and
finish.
everything? Yeah.
Sounds
that's
great,
good.
well, thank you guys.
Yeah.
Thanks for all your help, we appreciate it.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Yes. Yeah, like with the one meadow. They're turning the meadow into, they're maintaining the path to access the barn. So they're mowing that path, they're not mowing the whole meadow.
And the property had a barn in place that was a very solid barn as it's built, so to give them some sort of access to them, it's basically, the meadow goes up to the woods and it's just getting a little, it's like a 10 and 12-foot corridor between the woods and the meadow.
on this plan, no?
It's on,
Road, is that it there?
Yes.
Yes, yeah, in the back. All right. Now by appointment, we have Lawrence from North Road. We have Lawrence. Parents thereof. Hi again.
Did you two coordinate?
Yes.
Oh, great.
So, after talking with Brian and the builders,
Oh, cool.
Wanna be?
You're Jerry.
you can come up too if you want.
You've been to the line as many times as I have. Hi, folks.
Hi.
The reason why I just want to remind, because I was sort of confused a little bit as to why this was before the commission, aside from the conservation restriction easement, and it's to see if the proposed driveway is in approved, per se, in the language of the conservation restriction easement. And if everyone wants to take a look at it and review, I did highlight a copy in specific to the language that was showing the approval of, it says there's 3 driveways to be used and created on the property. In the letter from the James's family, it explains why they can't do a common driveway off of the existing drive, and why Brian can't do a shared driveway, because they still need access to the back there. And there's just a lot more to it in terms of grading that would need to be done, and paved surface, which isn't sort of what they wanted on these properties from the letter, and then also the conservation restriction on the property. So again, it allows for 3 driveways specified that are permeable surface, so like the driveway next door, has everyone been on the site?
No, I'm not.
Okay. And so the driveway is like a compacted gravel,
Yeah.
so it's a permeable surface. And the driveway proposed is actually, so this is just showing the conservation restriction, sort of highlighted in green, that's the edge of it. And this here I penciled in the proposed driveway, and you can see it printed basically here. This is the site plan that they're looking to follow, and this is from, I can't see the year, but this is basically the same pattern, if not
Yes.
close to it, that they are using or proposing. And after reviewing the conservation restriction and then reading the letter, if you would like to read it as well, it also has a copy of the conservation restriction. That's the original copy, and it's not as clear to read. But it's just simply, do we feel that it meets the criteria in the conservation restriction or not? There's not a formal filing unless it was not approved and they were to basically propose something else. But it does follow the path of least resistance. I had been out there, Jeff's been out there, Liz, Brian?
I have not.
Okay. On the property, it seems like there's an old cart path that has a few small saplings in it. proposed there would be a few larger diameter trees removed, but nothing over, I think like 20 inches, give or take. And it really does follow a path. When we were looking down, because it's sort of on a slope, when you're looking down the proposed driveway area, it's almost clear where it would go. It's kind of interesting. So they thought there might have been an old cart path or something that had grown in a little bit. But yeah, so it's sort of a, does it fall in the language or does it not? I don't know if you want to look at these.
Can I see this?
So that one has the actual proposed driveway.
This one?
Yep.
Yeah.
The next one is just showing the conservation restriction boundaries. And then the following is just where I had sketched in on the original map where it would go. And the entire easement stretches onto the adjacent property as well. So it's not solely on their property, obviously, by those maps.
And Jerry, you had marked that driveway, right? You're the one that has the...
Yeah, I was out there and marked that. So it's pretty close to what we're doing. We're actually, the tree cutting service is ready to cut a path further up off of the other gravel road to access where the well's gonna go. Tomorrow, actually, up there, but we're not cutting the driveways yet until we make sure that you guys are happy with everything.
Right, and I mean, there's no wetland resource there, it's strictly the conservation restriction.
Yeah.
So even outside the restriction, it's not in our jurisdiction.
And how wide are driveways?
It's gonna be pretty close to 500 feet, give or take.
Length, but how wide, Jerry?
Oh, 10.
10 feet?
Yeah. Yeah, it snakes up. It's funny how you mentioned that about when you look at that path, when you're at the top of the property where the house is, it's far better visible than it is when you look up the hill. It's amazing.
These homes are so small.
Sorry.
If I remember correctly, was there another proposed driveway that was originally
Oh, I have those
snaked in?
too. So-
Yeah, not so much proposed, but in the original when they were talking about the third
Yes,
possible.
so this is what they had brought to us originally.
Yep.
And I'm looking upside. But not really.
Yeah.
So, the CR is here.
Yep.
Well, it comes this way, so it shouldn't really trail out that way, but it comes down to here. This is the stone wall, and that's actually, excuse me, this is the CR boundary. This is the stone wall that abuts the other property and separates the two. And then this is the proposed driveway. And so it would continue up. And this is the, this is the existing drive. And so here's, so this is this line.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, some dots.
Yeah.
The house is,
This is or it's proposed to be.
Yeah.
Right, that's that line there.
Mhm.
That's the house.
So the
Septic
dark blue
fields
is
over
the
there.
restriction. And they do have to, well, they don't have to, I guess, but this loop is basically here because there's a gully and the cart path, I'm gonna term it, basically follows that. And it is a pretty deep gully. So that's why it really doesn't stay right
It
along
seemed like
the
it
edge.
followed basically
It was the
a
path of
natural
least
way.
resistance. And the question here is, does this fall within the 3 driveway limit attached to the CR? And if the answer is yes, then they're good.
They're good, exactly.
It would,
this looks like it does.
it would seem to, right? And the only question is, they had to propose different area for it, but it clearly says it's gonna allow a third, or we should allow a third.
Agreed.
It would seem to me if this is a natural way for it to go, following along the edge of it, and the wording is that it does allow a third. I mean, it was somewhat sketched in, but
That seems
That's what it
ridiculous.
says.
it seemed like it was written basically to say, when you figure out where the house is gonna go, we'll figure out a way to get a driveway in. This seems like the path of least resistance.
Right.
There's not 3 other driveways.
Right, and that's
Yeah,
the other thing
right.
too, is there's not 3 other driveways in the CR. There is another
Right.
driveway out here. You can't subdivide this property either under the CR, so I don't understand. Maybe they thought if they needed different entrances or something, but it does allow for it. And there is, I'm not sure if the property next to it is in the easement. I believe it is though, yeah. So then that's 2 in the
Yeah.
CR. So you can go one more.
And the letter explains why they can't be shared.
Yeah, that it was explored.
So the written
Yeah.
letter is from the Jameses, who have the conservation restriction, who used to own this entire property, who own the property that's undeveloped still. And Erica from our town planner explained it as well, why it's better to do it this way. And then the letter also explains that the shared driveway, they asked Brian not to do it because they wouldn't be able to gain access to their property unless they made a common drive. The common drive isn't just simply paving it and adding another end off of it,
yeah.
spur. It's a lot of grading. There are a lot of different qualifications that need to be met before it can be a common drive. And therefore, if they tried to put a house back there, develop it, it'd be more of a cost, it'd be more trouble for them. They wouldn't be able to basically build and then just add a spur. And then in terms of moving it over out of the restriction, being on the property, you can sort of tell why. And Brian had called and both me and Erica and said why they couldn't necessarily do that, because it would be a safety hazard. This driveway would be too close to this driveway. And at first I sort of said, okay, well, they're close to each other, but when you think of headlights, you think of other things that play a role in the matter. It is a safety hazard.
And are the Jameses, are they available just to review this, considering that they hold the CR, Rebecca? Are they
They
still,
were very active in talking to Brian and sending him information.
So they're aware
They
of
signed the
this.
letter.
Yes,
Mhm.
Brian and the
Comfortable,
James
yeah.
Very aware.
had many, in
Yeah.
fact, the letter that
Yeah,
I think
it's
you
right
have
there.
was signed both by Brian and Mr. James.
It seems to me like it's within the wording then, and it's within the keeping with what James wanted to do with putting the land into trust anyways. I don't know if that's something we need to vote on, or if that's just something
It's just sort of another
we
thing
can kind
that,
of come to a...
yeah, go ahead. sorry.
No, I was gonna say, I'm looking for an idea, is it something we just basically come to agreement on and just...
Yep,
sit
it's
down
something,
right that way,
an agreement. I did type up something else when I was talking to Jackie earlier, just to, it lists basically the highlighted terms
Yep,
and says, you know, it seems to be in the language, as long as it's a permeable driveway, and the conservation finds that it's within the language documented in the conservation restriction.
makes sense.
Yeah.
So I'm comfortable, and this wasn't an official hearing, right?
No.
So nothing open or closed.
No.
I don't even know that we need to vote, we can just sign, right?
Yep.
All right.
is it possible to get an as-built?
Yeah, that would be helpful.
Yeah, not a problem. Even in looking at this thing, you know, the driveway skirts that fine line between the other existing driveway and the edge of that conservation, where it's got this little, I call it the dog leg over here. Yeah, like Rebecca said, the biggest reason that's there, and you've been to the property, there is a gigantic gully there. It's about 8 feet deep. And then there's another smaller one, and there's rock outcroppings right here that just winds its way around, so. Oh, yeah. So, it is the path of least resistance that Farmer James 100 years ago followed, I think.
10 feet wide.
It is. 10 to 12 is about your average, you know.
It's
Could get wider when they drive off the edge of it in the wintertime. Won't be this
And
winter.
hence the safety factor of not having them too close together.
Won't be this winter, though.
No.
Trying to get it built this winter.
just included to remind.
Tree cutting tomorrow.
For the asphalt.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
This is all we need?
That should be all you need.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you.
Wonderful. And will you be in touch with Brian, or shall I have
Yes.
Brian call you?
I'll be in touch with him. But after, he was sort of, again, he reminded me about, because coming into this and sort of the middle but beginning of it, and then reviewing everything. I said, I think all we need is a check or not check, so like checking off the box.
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you.
Yeah,
thank you so much.
Appreciate it. It was really nice seeing you with that.
Yep, good luck.
Thank you.
Okay, so now by appointment, do we have Andrew Lappin? Main Street.
Back with, Duchamp. Right. Your daughter is there in the car. Okay.
How are you?
Well, how are you?
Good. Yep.
I just came from the hospital, a lot of my materials, I was managing an emergency, I work in healthcare and Tevin, so sorry about that.
Sorry.
So I asked Andrew to come in, so after our site visit, Jeff and I went out and I think Liz was gonna come or something, I don't know.
Yeah.
So anyway, so we walked to the perimeter of the property and there was trees taken down. They were reviewed by a horticulturist, and that's the reasoning behind them being taken down. After the fact, Andrew wasn't sure, I guess, that he had to file or what he had to file for. So I said, why don't you just come in? He agreed to file an NOI, and he will be doing that and mail it to the abutters, etc. But he wanted to make sure what we needed from him. So that's what this sort of conversation is. We had discussed, so the trees, obviously, there was some brush piled that had been there from the previous owner, clearly, and that's where the trees that were taken down were sort of placed. We informed him that it shouldn't really be there, even though it was there. And so he was very willing to move it if necessary, but was understanding that he did need to file. So he is looking for, as I understand anyways too, I don't know if you were still thinking of moving the paddock or talking about
It's
the paddock.
really about what this commission would like to
Okay.
see. You know, obviously something's already there, it'd be great if we could keep it there, but, I mean, we're all here to make it, we're happy and meet whatever requirements are necessary. So we have a small turnout for our 3 horses that are in this enclosure. The previous owners had used it as a goat pasture with some portable fencing. They've kind of been using it as plastic netting. And so we put up an electric fence because we have horses and not goats on the space, and you need something a little bit more substantial. It's essentially the same footprint of what was there, minus there was a few trees that were considered diseased. They were ash trees. I believe that's actually been a big issue, is diseased ash trees. So we got there, they were already marked with this big red X. And so we cleared those for safety. But otherwise, we pretty much are using the same spot that, from our knowledge, as far as we know, was already used as some grazing area. Whether that was appropriate or not, it's a different question. So I'm looking for guidance to know either how to remediate any issues, or if we need to move, like, just let me know what you'd like to see.
So I think the first two things that came to mind when we were on the site visit, and just even with horses, is manure. And you were talking about, well, maybe you can talk to the commission, just say how you were handling
Yeah,
the manure.
so we do remove manure from the pen twice a week, so all solids are removed. It more when necessary, but that's kind of scheduled twice a week. We move it outside, it's outside the buffer, it's on our own land, and then we have it's a person who recycles manure, who comes and takes it away and carts it off to a farm that does that. So that's our current management system. It's kind of, it's a sustainable model of, working with animals. But that all comes out, obviously, horses also urinate, and things also have, the land is still obviously being affected by animal waste, and I understand that as well, so.
And then with the manure, so when you move it out of the paddock or out of the wetland area, is it going in a bucket, or is it just
So
like?
it's currently on the ground right now. Now, if we can move it into a metal container, it removes something from sustainability, which I understand might need to happen. I'm open to that. Currently goes on the ground outside the zone, away from the wetlands. So,
You can see it from the street, right?
yeah.
It's sort of right behind the barn.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like a heaping pile of manure. I mean, it's a lot of shavings in there,
Yeah,
honestly, so.
But it does appear to be outside the buffer.
Right,
So that piece of it was done responsibly.
right. I mean, would the commission like to suggest that it be put in a container, maybe some sort of control around it?
Yeah, I mean, I think the refuse portion of the conversation is secondary to the issue of the paddock itself, right? And, I mean, we've had homeowners come with proposed paddock locations with engineered documents showing where the buffer zones were and the paddock shape and the fencing area, so that we can actually make a decision around this. The biggest concern that I have about the paddock location on your specific parcel is the fact that it is graded
Yes.
down towards the wetland resource area. So at the very least, I think we need to take a look at that, take a look at erosion controls, and determine whether the paddock location is even feasible. And we need a plan to do that.
We also need a site visit, I think, an additional site visit where the rest of us can get there. I
And
think
if
I've
we
been
show
to the property.
proposed ideas of where we can move it to, which would be outside the buffer, as far as we could tell.
Been to the property
Yeah.
to buy meat. I mean, I've been to the property with the previous owner
Yeah.
to buy meat. And what I recall, the goat area is kind of small.
Yeah, so I guess from the way it was explained to us by the previous owners, they moved a lot of, hit a lot of portable fencing, right? They were moving it around the property, right? And this was one of the areas they were using. So the other option is, if you're familiar with the property where the greenhouse was, there's area there that we could move them up there. We were hoping to use it as a garden space. However, we understand that if you need to use it otherwise, we can do that too. It's in the barn where they live, but we get it. So.
So I think too, and I know you said you've had to run, handle one issue.
Yes. Anything with me, sorry.
And so, but when you do file an NOI, and that's, this conversation is probably more clear with the plan, but this is a conversation just to get our feedback, and then you're still filing the NOI. You
Yeah.
need to create the plan then. So what we're expecting is, we need an engineered plan, whether it's where the paddock is now, or if you should choose to move it, whatever proposed area, great. As Jeff stated and sort of hinted at, and I think as you can just see from the road, if you are to keep it in the area, or you're hoping to keep it in the area that exists now, it will probably need substantial erosion control.
Okay.
So just be sure when you're engineering the plan to keep that in mind and maybe include some
Is there a preferred method? I mean, straw bales or, you know, just change of gradation, but I mean, is there a preferred method that you'd like to see?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think the plan will bear that out.
Okay.
To me, I mean, given the slope, I would expect that paddock to be graded with some type of retaining wall
Okay.
in the corner. Whether that's feasible or not,
Right, and I don't know, I mean, that would be a permanent structure to add there, I don't know if that's what you want us doing.
well, it depends on where the delineations
Right.
put your buffer zone
Right.
right there, right? And I think that's where the engineered plan comes in. It'll show us what the setbacks are and what is possible.
How do I obtain that? This is a town or do I use an outside firm?
You would use, I can give you a list of who we've used in the past. Ducharme and Dillis is one, they're sort of up there on the wall right now. Also, I know Ecotech has done different projects in Boylston, and they're on our list of sort of preferred. But, yeah, so you would hire
Yeah, so if you let me know what vendors you prefer, that'd
Yeah.
be great.
Yep. I
Appreciate
can
it.
send you that list.
And that'll give us, right, that'll tell us what we can and can't do,
Great.
right? And what fits and what doesn't fit. And in addition to the paddock, I would also just recommend, given the proximity to Great Brook,
Yep.
you know, have them take a look at that as well, Andrew, right? And set your 100 and 200 foot
Great.
riverfront, right?
Yeah, and if we do, so in the course of this kind of conversation with this company, if we realize it does make more sense to move it to a place outside of the buffer, do I still need to file the NOI? What does that process look like?
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, if everything you're proposing to do is outside of the buffer, then you really don't need to deal with us.
Okay.
Right. But I will say that even if it's proposed outside, I think we still want a site visit, and we would still like to see the plans, because you'll have to make them anyways, that just show and say, yes, it's outside of the buffer.
Great. Yeah, and of course, again, whatever it needs me to do, we'll do.
Do you have a schedule of how the horses and the manure is handled and something that says that, you know, someone who's
Yeah,
doing it? and-
yeah, it's an informal agreement kind of thing where she comes, I think every 3 weeks, and she removes and takes it away. I don't know where she takes it to, but
Yeah.
she takes it away, brings her bobcat and scoops it up and takes it all away. But,
And then the sizing of the paddock to the number of horses is also something I would love to know more
sure.
about
Yeah.
in your document.
yeah, and we only have 3 horses, right? So it's not a huge operation. But great, I can do that as well. I appreciate that. Good.
My name is Martha Remington. I'm the butter to 401 Main Street, but I do live in the Pan. Isn't it the proper procedure if you're planning on cutting trees in a wetlands area that you notify the Conservation Commission first? And it's my understanding that no more than 50% of the trees can be cut in an area. My concern is, does this property at 401 have boundaries that are currently marked now? And does it have wetland boundaries at 100 and 200 feet that are also marked? And why was clear cutting done without seeking the town's help about this? I mean, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and Conservation Commissions is pretty well known. And you shouldn't just come to a property and, I'm gonna put my 3 horses here. So that's why I'm just concerned.
Of course.
I didn't even know there was a paddock until the leaves left the trees. So I was just curious about that.
So to answer your question regarding the trees, the commission at times in a safety hazard type of situation, if the tree's dead, gonna fall on someone's house, does sort of approve 1 to 2 trees being removed. That wasn't the case here. In this case, the trees were marked and clearly they were removed. One was definitely rotted on the inside, but still falls under exactly what you're talking about, where the trees were taken down. However, that is why the filing is being done. Because regardless of what was done before or after, a filing still needs to be made, and now he's acknowledging the fact that you need to file whether, because obviously there was miscommunication, something was missed in terms of prior to those trees being cut down. And now he's here and he's showing, yes, I want to be in compliance, and that's why the NOI is going to be filed, and those trees will be included in that NOI.
The boundaries?
And the boundaries, so that's what
No,
we're...
and the boundaries.
Yes.
Are they clearly marked?
No.
The
they're
boundary
not.
between Bolton Conservation Trust property
No.
and
Well-
the
No, Martha.
401?
No, Dan and I walked the.
But are the boundaries marked, though?
They're not. Dan and I walked the property line at Skinner, and he's at least 50 feet from it. But what we're asking for is an engineered site plan that shows us exactly where the new delineation boundaries are.
Because normally you put the wetland boundaries things, you know, on any property, first thing those little tags go up.
Not at every property.
Not if a house isn't, if it's
Well-
not a property that is basically a fresh plan, new slate, typically you see those boundaries put up first. So when they're building the house or proposing to build the house, they know to stay away from certain things. In this case, the house is obviously already built, the property's already been used and work done, and the land's been worked a little
The
bit.
gift to the Conservation Trust was fairly recent, however.
Okay.
Okay.
And that boundary changed, I think it's within 4 or 5 years.
No, and I'm telling you, Martha, that we walked the property boundary with the GPS file, and there's no disturbance on the Skinner
So
Conservation.
none of the paddock is within the Conservation Trust area?
Not even close. Yeah, at least 50 feet.
Great, thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions from the commission?
Yeah, I guess the other, maybe it's just administrative piece of this is whether there's an agricultural exemption or not. I think I'd like to learn.
Town council weighed in and said there is.
There is.
We have that from town council in writing.
Did they say, so I know there was, I talked to the town administrator and he informed me of that. But he also informed me that the exemption is relative to zoning, I think.
Yeah.
So the technicality of this is, and that's why I sent you the file, so you could go through them at your own leisure, and I will talk to someone from town council as well to clarify specifically what the reasoning is for the exemption, so that I can compare it to our regulations.
Yeah, so the ag exemption that we received is so we can run an agribusiness, essentially, is how it is a zoning, right? So typically with the agricultural exemption, you need a whole lot more land than we have, right? You know, like almost like 20 acres, I think it is. So in that traditional sense, no, that's not our exemption. Our exemption is to run an agribusiness at that site that functions because it has an agricultural function germane to our existence, right? So yes and no. Yeah.
Is that a for-profit or no?
We're a for-profit entity, yeah. So we're a for-profit mental health center that conducts animal-assisted psychotherapy.
Because I know that the agricultural exemption means you have to have profit.
Right, and
Well,
yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
So, like I said, I think to answer your question specific to wetland regulations, because it is, one doesn't trump the other as far as Don was concerned, and he said, Don's a town administrator.
Yeah.
I'm sure you know, but I just
Yeah,
like to
yeah.
clarify. So, I think I want to just talk to him to see, or if you have the file, you can email it to me or whatever, just so that I can look at what we have and say, okay, you're under exemption, or you're not, but maybe you are in some areas.
Okay.
But, so yeah, I don't know if that answers. concerns.
Yep, thank you.
Okay.
So then I'll get that engineered plan, and I guess we go from there.
Yep, unless the commission has any further questions or anything else they would like to see specific to a plan being created.
Because I would ask between now and the next time we have a chance to take a look at a plan, you know, there has been materials that have been stacked right inside the wetland buffer
Yeah.
at the end of the paddock. Whether that is removed or not, I guess, is up to the group, but I would ask that no further materials, Andrew, be...
Yeah, that's not, yeah, we agreed on that when you came out before, yeah, that's not, yeah. Mhm.
When could we do a site visit?
Do you want the plan first, Liz?
Yeah, it would be kind of good to have the plan, I think.
Okay,
You think?
yeah, okay.
When could we imagine getting a plan?
Well, I've never done this, so I'll have to find out what
Well, practically, I mean,
I think it may benefit to do, if it's reasonable for the commission and you as well, to do a site visit prior to getting the plans, understanding that it may be a while before we get the plans, just to see what the current state is before there's any chance of snow, knock on wood, that there's,
that's true.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then we might still have to come back again, like, once we
Right.
know what we're looking at, especially if there's a long period of time.
Exactly. Yeah, so that's, so
Okay.
if,
Yeah, I think going before would be good,
Mhm.
when the snow comes and.
okay. Well, next week is Thanksgiving, and around Thursdays work for everyone on that poll like sent out.
Next Thursday.
I know,
Yeah,
next
yeah,
Thursday,
yeah, no,
giving us
yeah,
something,
Thursday's-
the following Thursday?
It should, yeah.
No, not for me.
No? Okay.
Evenings? Is it?
Yeah, that. no.
So,
Just that particular one.
Okay.
okay. Would you want to do the 8th? That would be the next. So, the
2 weeks.
Thursday after that, yeah.
Yeah, that would work for me.
That's fine, so that would be December 8th?
Yep.
What time?
When is,
I mean, I'm usually good anytime after like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I can make it work.
It needs to be before 5:30.
Well, it's gonna be dark at 4.
Yeah.
right. So, are you available?
Yeah, I can make it a little bit earlier, not 2:30, but.
Right. Just 4 work?
Yeah, I could do it for.
Okay. All right, so that works. And then I will look into the ag exemption, and I will also just send you a list reminding you of what we talked about tonight and what the commission expects. So you have it to sort of compare or give to whomever you hire.
Sure. Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate it, thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Said he was gonna do the 4 in the afternoon.
For December 8th.
Yeah. We'll try to get there at 5:00. Yeah, head plans might work. Okay.
So. Oh, and at the end of the meeting, we need to talk about next meeting.
Meeting afterwards, yeah.
So, Scott Goddard.
Of course, yeah.
is
All
the
right,
next.
the commission will now continue the public hearing for Lot 1 Century Mill Road. Hey, so again. All right.
Did everyone receive the document I sent?
Yes.
Okay.
Yesterday, yes.
So, this is the printed out document, and I believe I have a few more copies. But, so basically, after going on the site and viewing it, the only change in material, and when I was speaking with Scott, I agreed to advise the committee that this is the only new information for this meeting. And solely that there is 10 feet, and Scott, you could point out.
Yeah, this plan is the exact same
slab.
plan that I gave you last week, so this isn't that plan. So 2 things have happened since the last meeting. Well, one was I rambled on too long at the last meeting, as we all remember, and I apologize for that. So hopefully you've had a chance to look that over. So 2 things have happened since then. One is Rebecca and I had a chance to visit the site, so she hadn't seen the site before, so now she's walked the site and become familiar with the issues, and we reviewed this as well as this proposal. We discussed the issue of construction in this corner here, which has come up a number of times as a question mark. So just again, brainstorming. I didn't make it an official submittal. I have copies here if the commission so chooses. But I basically talked to the engineer about ideas where these corners would not be stabilized. Now remember, this house is at grade, right? So there's no proposed grade changes around here, so there's no big cuts and fills. But in order to protect these two corners, we discussed the potential of putting in slabs, anything within 10 feet of the limit of work. So this plan here is that. The only thing different on it is we just showed this corner here with, so a 6 foot by 24 foot slab across there, so that's anything within 10 feet of the limit of work. And then for this corner, an 8 by 12 slab on that corner. So there would not be a full foundation, so there would be no, dig, for that. And so that would be basically like a structure holding back soil here and here, so that anything on those pinch points could be stabilized, and there would be no ability to put a foundation anywhere within 10 feet of the proposed limit of work line. So that was the intent there. This was given to you by email with a revision made on it and all. And I sort of discretionary on behalf of the commission. If you like that idea, then can you submit these to you as a revised proposed plan. I'll give them to you anyways. And but that was the one item that we sort of discussed on site as a board. Besides that, nothing else has changed on the plan. I've submitted no new information other than the report at the last meeting, and we continued it to give you time to sort of digest and think and read and research whatever else you wanted to do. So I have nothing new. That's what I have.
In fact, I'm curious if you have additional thoughts after actually getting out and visiting.
Right, so after, in this, what is this? Okay. So after talking to you and going out and seeing the site itself, I sort of suggested, can we make this smaller? And after looking at the file, it's already been shrunk, which is understandable. It is close to the resources, and I did remind Scott that the commission had suggested but had not yet made a formal request to hire another consultant. If it is necessary, the commission does, as noted in our bylaw and the Wetland Protection Act, have the right to do so. But understanding that this has been a long process, there's the other side of things. My concern was the slope on that backside, along with the one closer, but I think that backside was a little bit immediate eye-catching. It's all pretty eye-catching when you're out there on the property. So 25-foot buffer, and then Erica also had given me, I asked her for the A&R just to compare the buffers. I don't know if the commission wants to look at it in terms of comparing it to scale, just to show that, there is a delineation that's appropriate or not. But also understanding that it's a plan and not physically being out there. It's when I first went out there, I said, it's a beautiful property, and it's wonderful for someone to be able to enjoy it. However, I think when I first went out there, I said I would put a small shack here, had no problem. It is a larger dwelling for something like this, but if the delineation is correct, it's within something that could be heavily conditioned by the commission. to have it be in compliance. But that's for the commission to basically make the call on. So I don't know if anyone wants to look at this plan and compare the two.
What did you discover?
So, after talking with Erica, so this one is a 1-40. So, this is the one in here. So.
What's the date on that plan?
This one is.
Oh,
Yeah.
25.
15.
And this wetland line is this line?
Yes.
It's the same wetland line?
Yes, correct. So
Yeah.
this is what I'm looking at. So
Yeah.
this was the A&R plan that was filed
Correct.
when it was
Yeah.
subdivided,
Yeah.
basically. And this was.
I think we
from-
included this in the record for you guys too, as part of this, so you could have it.
Yeah, probably.
You've seen this before. I think so. I've shown it to you.
So, in terms of on this, if I look at, so, and this is the other thing too, is I was just simply using the scale, but in terms of not having the house directly on this. But to me, the house would be very, very close, as we can see, but.
These are different scales too, right?
Right,
Yeah,
understandably.
okay.
So this is 40 here. This is 40 here. And in terms of this, where the well goes, this is sort of where I was having the issue with. And again, keeping in mind there are separate scales, I mean, two different scales. We don't have that drawn on this.
Correct. Yeah, so the well is cited to be 100 feet away from the septic system.
Right, understandably. But I'm saying in terms of being in this 25 on either side, I'm sort of coming upon what the commission has been struggling with in terms of that, not that the delineation is wrong, but just it's so close that it's.
Well, the good news is that, it's one of these sites where it's a fairly abrupt slope. The Commission was saying up there, it slopes down.
Right.
So sometimes when you look
Understandable.
at delineations, and there are these kind of flat transitional kind of things, there's a little more discretion.
Right.
Usually with these sharp breaks in slope, there's more abrupt changes.
Right, understandably, and after being out there, and I told you these concerns when I was out there. I said, there's obviously a slope, there's obviously a resource right
And
there.
they seem to match, topographically with
Yes.
the 312, and they were reviewed by Michelle as
Yeah.
well.
So, again, so regardless of even Michelle's affidavit, that isn't appropriate for this property because she worked on this property. That counts as a separate resource under the bylaw and the Wetland Protection Act, and I ran it by a couple people to double check it, who work for MICC, which is the Massachusetts Association of Conservation Commission, to just make sure that if we could consider it on that property as well, because I honestly wasn't sure in that situation, so I needed to confirm it with someone else. I did confirm it with someone else that it is not related to this in terms of an affidavit, because it's a separate lot, and it counts as a separate resource. Also, the commission didn't approve, which at the time, I don't think you felt it necessary to get it approved by the commission, but the commission, in suggesting a request to have a third party, maybe should have made a more formal request, and that's where there's a chance to do that now in terms of hiring one that we are comfortable with. And as I was telling Andrew, as you had heard, we have a list of people or surveyors and wetland specialists that we use consistently, or we see their projects consistently, we're out there and we're with them and see what they delineate. So we are more comfortable with that. Michelle wasn't one of the specialists that we had approved. And again, it wasn't a formal request, so you had all the right to have her look at the property. The affidavit isn't related to this property, and therefore it's moot in the situation. However, in terms of having a wetland specialist look at it, maybe she was appropriate, but that wasn't a request by the commission. Do you know what I'm saying? So the
I understand that we can sort of debate the merits of.
Right, and I'm not.
I mean, I think I would be more inclined to understand where you're going with this if there was something on here that looked questionable. It's not like, we looked at this and
It's the
said.
razor thin margin of
Yes.
error here.
That's
I mean,
yes.
everything is so tight.
Right, which is,
And we're doing it all on, this is all your opinion
right,
Mhm.
about this. This is not an
Which-
independent third-party verification, which if you're gonna have this razor wire, margin of error, I feel like it's not unreasonable.
So
demand that.
just to go back to the Michelle thing for a second, right? When the
so
I'm
when the lot was
not
sold.
afraid of peer review because I know that it's right.
Okay,
But just logistically, to go back to that, so the original application for this
Mhm.
was for this. It
Yes.
included both, was now both parcels.
Right, but it counted as one at the time. So
Right.
now that it's separated, and like I said, I checked with a couple of the different departments along with MACC, and it's two separate entities now because it was subdivided.
Right.
So where the lot was being built and where the buffers were being considered in relation to the building, that's where her affidavit would come into play. In affidavit, she would have to have submitted just a wetland delineation for that property.
Right, so be that as it may, it's a little strange to me that we're having to go through this exercise verbally because one is an expert, right? She's been doing this for a lot of years. She has the credentials of an expert. She was working for the town of Bolton at the time.
Right.
And she, practically speaking, she did walk all of this in the field
Right.
and offered an opinion on behalf of the town. She wasn't working for me.
Right.
She was on behalf of the town of Bolton,
Right.
so it was.
When she
So the
did
thing
this
is-
lot,
The
right.
thing is, she doesn't.
Yeah, right, and so
she-
just
she-
practically speaking, I don't know if it's necessary to go through
So
it again.
it
that's
is
all.
necessary so there are two options for the commission that I can see. If you feel there's a third one, feel free. Option one, which I think is to your benefit, is to have a third-party wetland specialist that is chosen, or we give you a few different options, and you can choose out of those options, at the expense of the property owner, have a delineation done to confirm, or maybe it's off by like a foot or an inch. I don't know what they're gonna find. But that would ease the minds of the commission, and we will be able to move forward with this in a second, or within a meeting, I'm sure, if we were to have that confirmation. But it seems right now that it's just, I think there are too many questions in the commission's mind in terms of how, as Karen and Brian and Liz and Jeff and I have all said about the closeness of proximity of the buffers on all sides of the project, which, if that's confirmed, so be it. But it's just so close that it's very difficult to see that. And in comparing the other plan and the A&R, and not having that directly on it, again, it's a different plan, it's a different scale, but
It's very close.
I think there are two issues. There's the proximity here, but there's also this.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Oh, okay, I thought you were talking about this piece here.
Yes.
Both,
Right.
yeah,
It's both,
yeah.
Yeah,
And the delineation.
right. And I think, in my honest opinion, I think that's the best thing to do. However, I can't speak for the whole commission. But I don't see how, because if those are off by any chance, I'm not saying they are, but I'm saying if they are, you're way into the resource area that on any other plan is not to be touched. You are not allowed to alter any area there. And that's why I think if it were, the 50-foot buffer, we wouldn't be, we'd still be having this conversation, but it wouldn't be to the extent that we are. It's the 25-foot buffer on top of you have a vernal pool on your property. So I think that's where we need that confirmation to have that peace of mind and say, okay, you know what? Or say, all right, well, maybe we condition it this way. And that's the other option is, that I'm seeing anyways, is if it were to be approved, it would be conditioned to an extreme, which I think though with another sort of confirmation delineation from a wetland specialist that we give you the option of choosing, I think it'll still be conditioned, obviously, but I don't think it'll be the extent that it would be without that.
Have you or any of you all seen something out here I'm not suggesting everyone has an equal understanding of expertise and all that stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
That has raised questions of accuracy. I mean, if there's not a question of accuracy, right? Because, you don't have to be an expert to see, a slope and a break, right? I mean, it's a pretty stark.
So what
transition.
our concerns is, excuse me, and I think Brian's mentioned it a few times along with other members, but I know that Brian has, is in terms of getting equipment in there to do the work. It's not necessarily the work, it is the work being done, but it's not as black and white as it seems in terms, so you can put it on marking the edge of the house, the slope, marking the extent of the work. However, a machine to dig or place something in, how wide is that machine? And then when the machine goes in there, how wide is maybe the bucket on the end of the arm to do this other work? And that's sort of where we're covered, and that's where our regulation is, where we are protecting the wetland, whether it be from, a mishap that just anything could happen on a site, and that's sort of putting the what ifs into it. But that aside, that's I think what we're looking at, aside from the vernal pool and maybe the delineation, but we're looking at the proximity to the house from the buffer and saying you could put up a wall, which you can't put up a wall because then it would be on the slope and on the line of the buffer and you can't touch that buffer. But you could put up a wall there, and if the wall gets hit, it's going to get knocked in the wetland. You could put up a fence, it's going to get knocked in the wetland. So it's not like you could put something there that would basically stop any sort of disturbance on the wetland, even though you're within the buffer. But it's the 25-foot buffer. That's why this is all so stressed on the impact, more so than if it were a little farther away.
I think there was a question about accuracy in terms of how far this was. At one point, I was looking at it. So, yes.
How far, what was it?
Where the house is located to the edge and how it's sited,
That was, so at one point, we approximated its location, and then we went back and had the surveyors go out, if you recall. And so then it was staked out by a professional land surveyor, and that's what's out there now. And the commission asked that to have done. We had that done, and then I think you all had a chance to walk it. Most of you did, I believe, after it was surveyed. So I'm not sure there's questions, at least in my mind, there isn't about where these corners are. And even the corner, the pinch points here, they're well staked and labeled out there by the surveyors.
Well, I still think a third party would be, I mean, it's just so close. I mean, I don't think it's unreasonable for us to ask, and I think it's our job.
Okay, so now we're formally going to request that he, whether it was done before my time, I don't know, I wasn't here, but right now, everyone's in agreement that we would like to request a third party that is chosen by us. Like I said, I'll give you the list, so you do have a few choices who you would like to hire, and then proceed that way, and then we'll be able to close on this after that.
Well, I have one problem with, if someone is looking at this vernal pool,
Yep.
the timing is critical.
Right, okay.
And so when we started this process, almost now exactly a year,
Mhm.
there was no way to find indicators that it was a vernal pool.
Okay.
And so there's a time in spring
Right.
when all of that activity starts up again. And so that's a problem.
Well, the boundary of the pool isn't dependent on that, right? The boundary is based on physical features in the ground, in the field, right? And so it's kind of like, can you delineate a wetland at different times of the year, right? Yeah,
Well,
you can.
So you can have fern, various types of plants and that tell you that that's the boundary?
Well, because it's a mean annual flooding condition, right? And so, as any given year isn't necessarily a mean. So you're just trying to use best professional judgment based on indicators. And I think when you went out, I don't know if I pointed out to you, but you could see this is where all the pine trees started coming in. So there's a topographical rise that breaks this, on the ground. And I've seen it during the whole season, of last year, and you can see where the water comes to. Like I said before, I think it's a sort of a generous determination to even call this isolated unsubmerged flooding, because I'm not sure it even meets that criteria. I think it's probably better qualified as isolated vegetated wetland, because it doesn't flood, very deep. So you get this flooding in this area. This area is densely shrubed and even trees coming in. There's definitely a topographical rise there. So, and again, even if I don't see how this delineation is going to be off in a point that matters, right? Because if you look at the pinch points, you got one flag right there, and that's all at the highest point on the landscape at elevation 313. And look, and that flag there, and this flag here are the pinch points. And look at how high, that's at 314 over there. It's like the highest flag in the whole landscape. So I'm not going to fight you guys on the request. It feels somewhat punitive where there's nothing that seems like it's going to change.
Let me say, it's honestly not meant to be punitive at all. And I think you might even agree that it's pretty razor thin where this house was in. We appreciate that you shrunk the house down, you brought it up. But even the original plans, which we thought were going to be within, outside of the buffer zone, we went out, it was halfway down the hill. It was halfway down that hill, which was, that's a problem, we have to shrink the house, we have to change how it was set up. But the original plans came in.
Which we did.
Right, but what I'm saying is, on the original plans, you said the back corner of the house, is outside the buffer zone. And then when we went out in the field and it actually got staked out, it was like, oh, it's not, it's halfway down the slope. So from where originally it was done, whatever the boundary marking was, and the house was laid out outside the buffer zone, and went out there and staked it out, turned out, oh, no, wait, the stake is inside the buffer zone. And then we have shrunk it and moved it in since then. But what I'm saying is, it's so razor thin, where even on the original plans, we thought everything was outside the buffer zone, turns out it wasn't. That we would like to see a third party. You know, you bring up Michelle doesn't work for the town anymore. If her opinion is moot on this site legally, then we are not gonna consider her opinion at all. None of us here, I can't speak for everybody, but I don't think
It just seems a little strange to me that.
any of us would consider her opinion on this site.
It was as if she didn't do anything when she actually did.
and-
No, I'm just saying, if we are, I'm just saying,
Practically speaking.
we are not going to, you know, anything that she had to say about this site, which it is now moot because she never worked for us while we're, or she's not working for us now as we're considering this site, right.
I get all that, and it
Right.
just seems like, I mean.
But I'm saying, you can
feels
keep,
like
you can
loopholes.
keep bringing it up, but if legally we don't have to consider her thoughts on this site, trust me, we're not gonna consider her thoughts on this site. And it has nothing to do with you at all. It's just that it is so tight and razor thin that I think we would feel more comfortable with somebody else looking at it, because it is an important resource area. I mean, that is as wet as what can be back there as far as
So
the
what-
whole resource area
So
goes.
can we clarify what would be the requested scope of what we're asking for here? Just so I understand.
So, well, do you wanna?
I'm just gonna say,
Okay. So if, and it seems like that's what we're gonna do, and Brian can do it formally, making a formal request to get a third-party wetland specialist that is chosen by, and like I said, we'll give you a few options that are chosen by us, so you can have a choice as well. For a third-party delineation specialist, look at the buffer delineation, the resource delineation, and then specific to distance from those buffers. I don't know, any questions about
So-
that, or if anyone
So the
wants to
question
be more
is
specific?
the accuracy of the wetland flags delineated in the field? This is what you're at?
No, so what, it's not, it is the accuracy, but basically, we are having someone come out to confirm to us the delineation. So the accuracy, the existence, where the buffers are, where the resource is.
Right, but you're not asking for another survey to say, like for example, the pin flag that we have there for the corner of the house. Are
You can leave
Are you
the house.
questioning that the surveyors put that in the right spot? Is that?
no.
So
Yeah.
the actual structure, I believe, in the well marking, those will all stay in place.
Just the
It's
the flag.
the resources that we are concerned with.
Mhm. Do you have your list that we can look at and talk about?
Yes.
I'm trying my best, Jeff.
I'm with you. Yeah. I'm with you. Scott, you said it yourself, you're not afraid of peer review, you obviously know your
No,
stuff.
you're
Right.
very well, I mean, you've done a great job for what you are, what your
I gotta
job
get my
is.
name put on your list.
No, so it's not about, it's not about verifying whether you did a right
So
job.
the
but you just need
highlighted
to-
are the wetland specific. And this was made by Carol, looking historically who we've used in the past, who we've seen projects from, who we've been able to go out and basically see that.
So the yellow list is,
Those are basically the wetland specialist specific consulting
Yeah.
survey companies that we have seen projects from the past, or that Carol has suggested we use
Sure.
in previous conservation meeting projects.
so we can, you know, I mean, maybe we can get a couple of just quick email proposals from you guys, you know, but I don't know this land surveying company here, but LEC I know, you know. I
Yeah,
mean,
so
if
you can-
You
you
could
can-
contact them, you know, Ducharme and Dillis, I know those guys, you can contact them, you know, and, you know, see what happens. Dan Wells works for me, so maybe that just makes my observations here qualified if I can have Dan go look at it.
Well, it's not highlighted, so.
All right, I'll highlight
Let me just.
So, and,
Yeah,
I know the guys
So-
at Ecotech are qualified to do this.
yeah. We,
So maybe you can just send an email to those three companies, see who can do it quickest and cheapest, and then send me the responses. Because if one of them says, oh, I'm booked up for a month or whatever,
right,
then that would kind of knock them out.
Right. So I think too, in terms of who's hiring them, so the property owner it's basically through their funding. They're paying for it.
Right, it's going to get paid for
Right.
by the applicant.
So, and how it works is it's paid in full prior to the delineation happening, just to be clear. So when there is one chosen, and I'm pretty sure, and I can check the bylaw again, but you and the property owner choose from what we give you. And you do the contacting, and then you send to us once you choose one, and you say, this is who I want.
Okay, so you're asking me to do the legwork to get the
Right.
proposal. Okay, that's fine.
Out of the highlighted
That's fine.
list. And then send us who's going to do it, when they're gonna do it, and then they'll come in with the plan to the next meeting once it's completed. And I think, and tell me if I'm speaking off terms here, but I think the commission would like to plan a site visit once everything is delineated and maybe flagged, so we can confirm, okay, this makes sense now. Not that it's not already done, but just confirming that the other party has done so.
Right. Or maybe we can just do it with you, so we don't have to trouble everyone unless they wanted to come along or something like that.
Yep, so how the site visits work is, the reason why I solely came out last time was because one, most, if not everyone, had already seen the site, seen the delineation. I was coming in basically new to this, so I had to see the site for myself. Typically, how site visits work is we ask the commission when they're available. If there's a time that doesn't work for them and I have to go out with one or two of them, but typically it's not just myself, just to be clear.
That's fine.
Yeah, okay.
All right, so I guess I'm trying.
Yeah,
I know there's some
and, you know,
tension
we
with respect to this, I'm
appreciate
trying to be agreeable, and I'll do that. I'm gonna make a formal request too. I would request that, one, you keep Dan's name on the list,
Okay.
and you just change it to my company, because
Okay.
he doesn't work, I bought Highly Ecological Services
Okay.
3 years ago, and that we stay on the list as
To the list.
experts who perform work in the town of Bolton.
Yeah, so that is the list we give out, and I will change the company. But yeah, it's not that the highlighters are the only, highlighted companies are the only ones that we allow. It's the entire list. The highlighted ones are specific to wetlands.
No.
So that's all. I just
After we get through this project, then I'll make a request to get highlighted.
Yep.
Right now,
Okay.
it's the unhighlighted
Yep,
version.
that's
We'll
fine.
go to highlighted later. Right, Jeff?
If you're right, yeah.
All right. What's the next day of the meeting?
So we're working that. I will send you an email though.
Do we have to continue to a date certain?
Oh, yes. So
December 1st, we're doing.
so my question for the commission is, because I have to be at the selectmen's meeting, on the 1st,
What do you have at the second meeting on the
I
1st?
don't request me to go.
Could you let me know, because
Yes.
I might go too.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, so that's December 1st, right?
Right,
That's
so-
Thursday.
So I don't know if everyone else can be here, if I can have Jeff take the minutes maybe, since he's on here, or no?
What date are you talking about?
December 1st.
I can't make that day.
Okay, so I can't either.
Okay.
So,
So,
and the other question is, which we were gonna get to at the end, but it's necessary to get to now, I suppose. Do we want it to stay on Thursdays? Is that still good for everyone, going forward?
Yeah.
Sure.
it's fine.
Okay, I just
That's
wanted to
all right.
clarify, I was
Yeah.
talking about the minutes. Okay.
Okay. So would we look at the next Thursday, the 8th? Because then we start.
Did you say you couldn't?
So that,
On the 8th?
no, the 8th is good.
Okay.
First,
That's
the
our-
second is at 4, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same day?
Okay.
Do you want to try that for our next meeting? And then I know it probably gets dicey.
We get there.
There you go. Because we've done the only one December meeting in the past, and I don't know if we want to try, if we can try to figure out a second meeting right now in December.
So the 22nd would be 2 weeks.
22nd, wow. Mm-hmm.
Oh, don't say that word.
No?
Did you guys say you are doing on these?
On the 8th,
Eight,
yes.
yeah, sorry.
So I'll let you have your conversation.
Yeah, all right, I'd like to make a
Yeah.
motion that we officially continue the public hearing for Lot 1 Century Mill Road.
Do you wanna, sorry.
Sorry, no,
to stop
go
you.
ahead.
Do you wanna formalize the request for the,
Yes.
just for the?
Yep, so I'd like to make a motion that we formally request
Third party.
a third-party delineation for...
Oh, lot 1.
I'm sorry, a third-party delineation for Lot 1 Century Mill Road.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So just a quick question about your list. So like, for example, at LEC, I know they have a team of people there.
Yes.
Is your list specific to this individual? I mean, I don't know Sean personally, I've never heard of him before, but I know there's other people in their Worcester office who are wetlands consultants, or do you not? I'm just asking if it's specific to that person or nobody at LEC, or is that LEC generally speaking?
It's specific to that person and saying we've
Okay.
used that person before, we've confirmed it with them before,
Okay.
and they've been active.
All right, have a good night, guys. Thank you. I hope.
Enjoy your Thanksgiving.
Do you wanna finish your statement about continuing?
I'd like to make a motion that we continue the public hearing for Lot 1 Century Mill Road until our next meeting, December 8, 2016, at a time to be determined.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So continued.
Have a good night, all.
Thank you.
You too, thank you.
Let me finish your-
Yeah,
right
let
here.
me
Yeah. We're
Other business.
we're gonna open and can't, yeah, I'll move that. We'll get you down.
When was your site visit?
The site visit
On the
for,
8th.
it was the 8th as well, yeah, the 8th at 4 o'clock.
But they're, oh wait, no, we're doing the site visit after the review.
Yeah.
Gotcha,
Correct.
okay,
Yeah,
gotcha.
where it gets-
Perfect.
All right. Do we want to talk about other meeting dates real quick?
Yes.
So we have the 8th for December. The 22nd, I know the 29th's no good for me. 22nd I could do, I don't know. It's real dicey, I know everybody's calendar fills up.
Do we know we need it?
I don't know.
As of right now, we don't need
And
it.
generally, we've done the one meeting in December, one meeting in January in the past.
So maybe we just
Stick to that.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, if we get the dates next week, and
We'll find out this.
discover what happened.
I was gonna say, yeah, if a lot of things mysteriously come in all of a sudden,
Do we want to look at January at least?
I would love to look at January,
Just
yeah.
for the.
Yeah, no,
Thursday's not good.
you did Tuesdays too.
What,
right?
Tuesday? Thursdays in January don't work?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's like Thursdays for 6 months. Did Tuesdays work for people?
Yeah.
Tuesdays work for me, but
Yep, Tuesdays and Thursdays work.
Okay.
Everything else.
Just that.
Tuesday, yeah.
all right. So do we want to look at Tuesdays in January?
Yep.
I would avoid the 3rd, even though I miss the rest of the month, just because it comes right off the whole, whatever, New Year's Day. A lot of people are off Monday.
My birthday.
Just- Yeah. I don't want to be reviewing things. I want to be
Yeah.
celebrating Liz's birthday.
Birthday is
Extra.
January 1st, January 2nd.
Me
Too
too.
close.
29 this year.
Do you want to do the 10?
Still,
That's what I was gonna say.
29 this year.
Oh, yeah,
so
yeah.
today's my birthday, Tuesday.
Is it really?
Is it? Happy
Happy
birthday.
birthday.
We'll send you an email
This is
or
the
a phone
place,
call.
this is the place to send it.
Yeah.
They could celebrate it with more
We're here for you.
Listening to him talk again.
Does the 10th work for people, January 10th, Tuesday?
Sure. I know, it's really in the future.
I have no idea what's going on that way.
It's a whole different calendar.
So then, do we want to say every 2 weeks, and if it needs to change,
Yes.
we can change it?
I think
Just so I
that
can
makes
give
sense.
something.
Yes,
7 o'clock.
correct, yes.
It's amazing, it's like 17.
Going to start, yeah,
I
good start.
remember 2000, like it was yesterday.
I know, right? Oh, God.
17 years, gone.
So,
Okay, I'm sorry, so we have to officially reopen. We'd like- Go ahead.
reopen one.
Continue the public hearing for 7 Bridges Road and
Oh,
then
for next.
continue it till
Okay,
next
okay.
time, right?
Yep.
So I would like to reopen the public hearing for 7 Bridge Road, Maria Marrera, the installation of culverts in her property, and, Mass Wildlife, Bolton Flats. Maria's not here right now, she had asked for an extension, not an extension, but a continuation. So probably granting that, so I move that we continue the public hearing for Maria Marrera, 7 Bridge Road, until our December 8th, thank you, meeting at a time to be determined. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So continued.
Did you guys get out there?
Yeah, was there a visit?
Yeah, did we?
No, it got moved.
It got moved, and then I ended up going out by myself, and Jeff said he walked the property multiple times anyways.
Okay.
I don't,
I have not gotten out there.
okay, so we have time to get
Is
out
it
there.
possible just to go, she knows who we are,
I mean,
we just go there?
It's Mass Wildlife,
Wildlife
yeah.
land, so you can,
Okay,
there's
right,
public
right, right.
access.
I've
Yeah, it's not
seen-
big
see-
deal.
yeah.
Just keep
Oh.
an eye on something.
Yeah, keep
Yeah,
orange up,
orange,
because
yeah,
actually,
yeah.
the
I'm not-
DEP came out while I was there,
Yeah.
because I guess there was a hunter that was like, oh, there's someone walking around, just FYI.
There's no hunting on Sundays, though, right?
No,
Okay.
there shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There shouldn't
In
be.
theory.
In theory, yep.
I'll wear my best.
Same since I
Yes.
have orange, yeah.
Did you want to talk about that, or do you want to wait until?
Do you want to talk about it? You're doing a good job tonight, Rebecca.
Yeah.
I'm trying my
Yeah,
hardest.
yeah, yeah.
You can keep
I've
rolling.
really been
Yeah.
trying to swim through the files this week, so.
Great.
Rolling.
So I think just briefly, I guess, so this is catching up on the site visit. When I went out there on unofficial site visit, because it is public land, I walked the road that's in question and where the culverts are to be placed. They're still staked and marked with the pink flags on them. Because I think there was one other stake in that. I asked Maria and she said they were the pink marked ones. It's pretty flat in turn, I mean, there might be, in terms of the agricultural land, the wetland on the right side, because as you walk in, her land's on the left, conservation land's on the right, or wildlife land's on the right. And as you walk down the road, it's not necessarily a raised road aside from maybe 8 inches, different grade from both sides to the top of the path. As you walk down further where the flags are placed, I didn't really see somewhere where you would typically see a culvert placed. To me, as she was explaining it, I was picturing it, the road much higher of a grade, and then, or even maybe her land a little bit lower, and Mass Wildlife is higher, so that's where that difference comes in, and that's why there's water flooding. There is clearly wet area on the agricultural land. Presently, obviously, there's not as much water as there isn't in a lot of resources that aren't continuously flooded or have a stream. So to me, and they did have riprap in those 2 areas that were flagged, maybe it had been done before in sort of trying to remediate what Marie was thinking was a problem, but I honestly don't see where they're gonna go, and I'd like to sort of hear her input, maybe going out with her in the field to see, because maybe she has a different idea than we do, but it doesn't seem like it's even necessary, but that's just my opinion.
I agree. And Mass Wildlife is saying that they're pro-farm,
Right.
and they want to be a good neighbor. And they're offering her material that they already have in the form of these culverts, and she's planning to hand dig this entire project. There was standing water on both sides, and you know, it's a road, there's this sort of
is a road.
inference of hardship here. You know, I don't see this road as an improved road, this is more of like an access way to get in there. I mean, even if you did get a culvert underneath that road and put 2 or 3 inches of topsoil on top, you just equal
Right.
the water on both sides.
It's
There's
still
no
gonna flood.
topography.
Right,
To
It's
exactly.
still gonna
support
flood, so what's the
a
point?
gravity,
Exactly.
like a gravity
Yeah,
fed
which side is
drainage.
Which side is flooding which side, right? Is she gonna get more flooding coming in
But
from the
is it,
flats?
is it functioning as a barrier?
It's not.
It's not
No,
at
it's
all?
not. The gradient
It
is
didn't
made
seem it.
image.
And when you go out there to see it, you'll, I think, see the same thing, because walking out onto it, I'm waiting to come across this obvious problem. And it wasn't so obvious, and I tend to give the benefit of the doubt until I hear someone else's reasoning.
Sure.
That's just me as a person, and I don't make even my own judgment until I hear from them or see that, obviously. But in just walking the property, it was very obvious where it was going to be placed, what she was trying to accomplish, as she described here, and then after talking with Mass Wildlife, they seem to sort of say, not putting words in their mouth, but along the lines of, we're trying to appease her as well, and it's not gonna hurt us, so why not help someone out?
Correct.
And they also, correct me if I'm misspeaking, but they had said about the culverts, they would not give them to her until she showed a plan and exactly what it was, and have it be approved, that there would be a, basically, resolution to her problem through doing that work.
Mhm.
So that made me feel a little bit better too, because it wasn't just Mass Wildlife saying, here's the equipment, here's the materials, go ahead. They sort of had a check and balance in place as well, aside from her coming to us to present it. So.
Good stuff.
Yeah, I'll try to get out there and walk, I keep it driving by and saying, I'm gonna go, but it seems like you can pretty much tell where she's proposing and the area next.
And then, so Fred Kuhn was supposed to come in to talk about the culvert, possibly putting a pipe under it in the crossing on Century Mill Estates. He couldn't find a babysitter tonight, so he asked that, it's an appointment, so he really doesn't need a continuance, but he asked that we have it at the next meeting, so.
Discuss at the next meeting.
Have you been to Century Mills yet?
Yes, and, oh, so actually, thank you for reminding me, which I don't know if I put on here. So, I went out with Erica to just familiarize myself, because she had a site visit to go out on, so I went out with her the first time. I went out again because of something that Erica was going out with our inspector to go discuss some things with them. So I went out again, and while I was on the property, there were a couple things that were out of order, but I have pictures now because over the weekend they got them back in order. After the heavy rain that we had last week, I want to say now. Yeah. One of the very large culvert crossing that's in place, that's a permanent culvert crossing, they have an array of silt fence that had been working very well. But at the top of the slope where the riprap was, it sort of got disheveled, I guess, and the wall was broken of hay bale because of the heavy rain. So they, basically with the inspector put on his list that they would have to fix that, and they have fixed it. And I went out today to just run out there and make sure everything was in order. And then in a property that is abutting, it's the wetland and then the culvert crossing, obviously. And I forget what number it is, but I have it in the file. And on the side of the property, they don't have the final grading yet for the property yard, or what will be the yard. And part of the outer edge of that washed out down into the resource area, basically. Not terribly, but you could see a trail of sediment. So they went and they hand shoveled the larger sediment clumps, and then where we stated that they could reach with a machine from outside of the resource area, so they wouldn't be in the buffer or anything, scrape back and compact the larger erosion that had occurred, and there was a large gully in the side of the property on that lot. So they basically pushed everything back, compacted it, and it's solved. But even with the rain we just had, you can see small gullies or small erosion starting to occur again, and we had advised them last time to put up silt fence, and they had it on order, so that will be up within the week. And they seem to be pretty on top of stuff when we tell them to do things, so hopefully just gonna go and say, yep, okay, everything's okay.
Are you going to be on a regular rotation? Like, are the two of you gonna time it so that is your conservation?
I'm going to try to be, just because it's such a large property, and after going through the property with Fred and Erica and the inspector and just seeing the expansiveness of everything, I think that's a good idea, and that's something I need to either work on with Erica and say, you know, when you go on site visits, I'll come too, or if I go on site visits, you come too, or just schedule it so it's sort of every other, so we're not on top of each other.
There used to be a regular visit and this
Yeah.
meeting, and there was a commissioner who went to those meetings regularly.
Okay. Well, would you like to do that?
I'm not volunteering.
Okay, yeah, I was like, is this where we're going?
No,
Yeah,
the-
we're meeting.
The commissioner at the time was a retiree. He actually could walk to Century Mill from where his house was, so it worked out great, and he was happy to go sit in and report back, but we will take your expertise and word for it.
I mean, and I'll keep you in the loop too on this if you want.
Go there, and you should call out, go on, and say, walk through there, have money shoes.
So,
Did everybody have a chance to look at the minutes, which are attached to this? Have any questions, changes?
there were a few changes, they're in this copy though. I'm gonna take over the final.
All right, so then I would make a motion that we approve the minutes for the November 3rd, 2016 meeting as drafted and edited in our packet this evening. Here a second. All right, all those in favor? Aye. So accepted.
Okay. So, that's not the end.
No.
Good news, bad news, well, I'll start with semi-bad news first. I didn't finish the budget draft because there were some sort of very demanding issues I had to deal with prior to that, but I will send it out to everyone, and you can do your input. Basically, what it's gonna be is literally what's been happening. The only difference is the step increase that's included for my position, and then, which you'll see. And then also, the other thing was, there's allocated in the budget money, and it was assumed to be for the open space plan to hire a consultant or consultants. So that is still there to use or not use, I'm not sure what we're doing, but I plan on, and you'll see it when I send out the budget to you, to just bring that over as well. Leading into the great news, we have started revising and reviewing the open space and recreation plan, which if you want to get involved in, feel free.
I'm there.
We are meeting on the 8th as well,
Yeah, that's gonna be a busy day.
so it's okay, lots of coffee. So on the 8th, I think at 10? you
Yes.
said? At 10 a.m., and it's in this room. And I'll send you his email and then you
Yeah,
can.
yeah. You
Okay.
have access
I
to
do.
your account, yeah.
Okay, forgot if
Yeah.
you would confirm that or not.
Did you send minutes or?
Yes, did you not get them?
I don't think I got them.
Okay, I'll send them again. And you're talking about for the open space meeting?
Yeah.
Yep, yep.
Okay, 'cause I didn't see those, because somebody asked.
I was
a
waiting
question.
for you to like say, oh yeah, I got them, or send me an email, so that explains why I didn't get them.
Yeah.
Perfect, I'll have to check who I sent it to.
I think we have a good game plan.
Yeah, I think.
We have people that are expertise in all the areas. It's a revision. I think it's gonna work well. We'll just, we have 6 months, we'll get it done.
Right, so if you come to the meeting, you'll learn more about it. Dawn had suggested that we get it completed in a deliverable form for the annual town meeting, so that they can basically say, hey, we have people working on this, we have it finalized. And yeah, so that's what we're hoping to do, and that's our timeline in terms of long-term.
And it's also a way that if there are any budget requirements for any projects, we have a document that says we thoroughly researched, what's going on in town. And here's, here are the numbers and the data
Is that what this is?
backing.
No, but thank you for reminding me about that. So, we have in your
Sorry.
packets, no, that was great. That was perfect, because I would have totally been at the end of my conversation and just went, oh, what's this? So, do you not have them? Oh, just a few of them. So what is that? So, Jeff, if you want to speak about this, this is the
Oh,
one
this is
on
anymore.
anymore.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. You know what, I think it's the second one that speaks, I think, clearer to it. Everybody familiar with the section of anymore? The last time you guys were out there.
Hike anymore.
The primary trail right now, which is very established, goes right behind a residence. I mean, it is in their backyard. For the number of times that I've been on that property and had conversations with them, and they are super. Over the years, another non-marked secondary trail was cut, which is the blue line, and it exists. And it exists in our maps, but it's not marked. And we think that that was just a function of someone attempting to move the trail further away from the residents, right? So it is a documented trail, it's been GPS captured, it's in all of our map data, and we went out thinking, well, we need to mark it because it's in the maps. And the suggestion was made by one of the trail committee volunteers, well, if we're going to start marking trees for a trail, why don't we take a look at what the rest of the property offers? So we've walked this orange loop 4 or 5 times, finding the path of least resistance, with the intention of expanding the Annie Moore Trail Network into a broader area of the conservation land. There's some great topography out there, there's some great natural rock features. You can see there's actually a 360-degree overlook that we've sort of captured as part of the trail. And it doesn't look big, but if you walk it in both directions, it's about 3/4 of a mile.
It's not huge, but it's nice, yeah.
And it's a great walk back there.
Where
So-
is this?
This is Annie Moore Conservation.
Which is-
Take Long Hill Road. You
It's
know,
like in the bottom right-hand corner of
Oh,
the
yeah.
town, just south of
if
170.
you're going towards Stowe, you pass Hudson Road on your right,
Yeah.
and the next one's Long Hill
Rail
Road.
Road, yeah.
And then, I don't
That's back in
know,
there.
2 miles up there on your left, you'll see Annie Moore,
Oh, okay.
near the end of that.
Absolutely. So this is, this is town-owned conservation land. And the trail committee wants to at least make a proposal to the commission to say, we feel like this is a good opportunity to to extend the system into an area of the property that's not currently accessible. And it's also sort of provides a good route through the property away from this residence.
What does it take to put in a loop? Like, I can imagine what it is, but technically, what is it?
Technically, there's usually 4 or 5 of us that will go in.
Bushwhack?
Yep.
Yeah.
This sometimes it is, and when we put in a trail on an easement, and it's a 10-foot easement, it has to be where the easement dictates, right? And there's a lot of physical labor to make that happen. You have to clear everything through the easement. In a situation like this is truly path of least resistance. It's a big open area out there. There is some interesting topography. There's some really cool geological features that we'd like to bring people by. We think that's of high value, but it would be with the least amount of cutting as possible, right? Obviously, no major trees. I mean, we're talking about, undergrowth saplings and stuff, just to put a 5-foot wide trail through there. And then the way that these things usually go, put some markers up, provide a map, provide a GPS file, and over a period of time, the trail just naturally cuts itself in. Yeah. And if anyone would like to take a walk out there, I'd be happy to take a walk. It is pretty.
It's not marked now, right?
It's not marked now.
Pushback. Is there like a path?
The Annie Moore Trail is.
Yeah.
The red one is, yeah.
But this orange one is not marked, so it's just
No,
like
it's
a
the-
path in there somewhere?
This blue one, there's a path already?
The blue one does exist, although it's not marked. So we,
But the orange one is not marked.
it's not, Jeff, but we have a GPS file that we've created that you can run on your cell phone. So as you're walking through the property, you can see where you are in relative terms to where the trail would be, and that will sort of lead you through and around the loop. Okay.
Doesn't look that hard to get lost there.
It's not that.
Yeah, I bet you pop out in an orchard.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So, I think from a proposal standpoint and looking at this in a responsible way, we do respect open space, and, we're not attempting to gain public access to every corner of every conservation property, but this does solve a couple of problems, including getting people to use a path that is not in the backyard of a butter.
And that's the house right there.
Correct. Yep.
And it's part of an existing trail network too. We already have trails cut through there, and yeah, it goes in a little bit more, but we have properties we haven't even touched.
Agreed. Agreed. And this is a good loop, this is 3/4 of a mile, where the blue that's here is really of low value. It's so close to the primary trail.
You can just watch it from there
Right.
as you go through.
Yeah, right. So the intent would be to close that and just expand the loop, give people a little bit more real estate in Annie Moore to play around in. And if you're familiar with Annie Moore's a very point-to-point centric property. You can go in at Annie Moore Road, and you can get yourself to Old Bolton Road, or right?
Yeah.
And it's a very straight on point to point.
Yeah.
So when you start creating loops with point-to-point property, people the ability to maybe come in one way and loop around and go back, rather than stop and turn around, just go back to where they came, if that makes sense.
That does. I'd love to walk it with you, but I don't think, I'm perfectly comfortable with the trail committee putting in a trail as you've submitted here. I don't
Appreciate that.
think that's a problem. I think it's great, but curious if anybody else has thoughts, concerns.
And there's no resource areas back here, there's no wetlands, it's all upland, right? There's no bridges being built, there's no sensitive habitat, as it were, that we're crossing. This is really just upland forest, very dry. Yeah. Yep.
I noticed on the trailhead over in On Hill Road, is it, that goes into the hill, was all gutted.
Oh, we can talk about that. I was in there today, Jeff, taking pictures.
It was all, I've been in there, I go there with the dog all the time, and it was all, that parking area right there.
Yeah, we need a good solution there. In fact, we're working with a Boy Scout from Troop 1 who's doing a project, including a new kiosk at the trailhead.
Yeah, I saw
You've seen
that.
That's nice, right?
The Girl Scouts built a couple bridges out there that were.
I heard about that.
Very nice.
Yeah, excellent, right?
Yeah, they were.
They did a good job.
They did a good job. Whoever did a good job.
She did.
Good job.
Yeah. But I agree 100%. that parking lot definitely needs
Yeah, it
some
needs-
erosion control.
Right. It's for the road, it's like that, and then around the corner.
Previous rain really didn't.
Yeah,
It's true. Yeah, it's almost unsafe at this point. The trailhead is very rutted.
Well, it's not that unsafe, you know. I mean, it's rutted, but I mean, it's not so rutted you can't walk around it.
Okay.
Okay. Anyone
So
have
the
any
8th
more
is,
comments?
the 8th is on the 8th at 10 o'clock.
It's open space.
It's open space, and that's what,
No, that is
Bushwhacking.
the Trails Committee's proposal for,
And how do you keep it?
okay, so he's on the Trails
How do you
Committee.
keep it?
he's on the Trails Committee as well.
Somebody that once told me that if you get horses walking on it, that really compacts it and can keep it.
The mountain bikers help too.
Yeah.
Well, once it's mapped and once it's marked.
People will use it and then they'll
Yeah, no.
keep it.
Yeah. And then it's just,
Trail.
it's clearing fall downs.
Right.
It just becomes.
Just gonna change out there.
Keeping it open, yeah.
So I guess it's sort of a question, and it's been semi-clarified, so on the agenda, I wrote land maintenance. So we are waiting for basically the bill from Jim Henderson, who is maintaining Butternut and Bower Springs. I was there before and after with Jeff. He did a great job.
He did. He's very knowledgeable and very professional.
Yes, and he has asked that he be put on the agenda if the commission feels it's appropriate, so he can basically talk about the multitude of services that he offers aside from the mowing. So if the commission were interested in another service in terms of land maintenance, that we would know, okay, this is what he has. And he requested he be put on the agenda in January. Not specified of a date, but just a heads up for that. Also related to land maintenance, we received a invoice from an abutter to the Butternut Farm property.
Unsolicited. Or.
So,
Wait, what's the invoice? Okay.
so here's the butt of Butternut. So this was apparently a verbal agreement of some sort, and I'm going to contact the individual who did the mowing and just get the forms that he was given by the previous conservation commissioner or administrator, who had unofficially, in terms of writing, getting it signed and approved, and documented appropriately the services and what exactly the extent of the services to maintain Butternut. And Jim had actually called us, or called Jeff, and notified him that, well, a portion of Butternut was already mowed and taken care of, which he ended up doing some edge work that he didn't think he'd have time for on Bower Springs, so it did work out in a way to our benefit. However, we received in the mail an invoice from this individual. And because it's not documented, and I am going to ask him for a dated document, because this does not have dates specific on here in terms of when everything was done or when it was asked of him, and he had stated that the previous administrator had handed him the maps and shown which areas needed to be maintained by him, and he said, you know, if there's any future maintenance, and I'm sorry for the mix-up, but this is what happened. And I don't blame him for wanting to be compensated for his work. However, it's not in writing. So I think, and whether we answer that now or not, I'll pass around the invoice, but on how you would like to handle this after we get those other documents, which there are no emails, there's no paper trail, basically, aside from the maps that were handed to him. But this individual did take care of the property. And I spoke to the town clerk just to clarify if this is an appropriate invoice in the appropriate form. And I believe she said that she knew the homeowner, knew of him, and she said it's very likely that, you know, the order events did happen the way that they did, but there just happens to be no paper trail, aside from those maps.
Was this ever done before? Was this like the first time?
It was the first time, but it had been verbally discussed that this would be an annual maintenance plan. However, when I called him about it, I said, as of right now, and that's something else we want to talk about, land maintenance, in terms of, and I was going to wait until we get the bill from Jim Henderson to take care of the property, but we may want to make that an annual maintenance if that's what the commission wishes. That aside, when I called this gentleman, I said, you know, I'm sorry for the confusion, but there was no verbal agreement, there was no consent from the commission aside from that administrator, unfortunately. She's no longer with us. And as of right now, we're actually looking into someone else for routine maintenance, and he had no problem with that, but simply stated, if you still need me, contact me. So he does seem to be understanding, but again, I don't blame him for wanting to be compensated. I'm still going to wait for the mapping and your decision and the dated invoice, but I wasn't sure how you wanted to handle it because according to, and I'm still going to talk to our treasurer to find out exactly our responsibility to fulfill this. In my opinion, in my ethical opinion, I feel that we should, but on the other side of things, it's not, I guess, a legal document because there is no dates on it. It's not signed. There was no paper trail. There is no proven conversation aside from those maps. I don't know if those maps have some sort of correspondence on them, but that's also something to keep in mind on the flip side.
I tend to agree. I think if we can get a proper invoice dated with everything, and we do have budget money available, I would think
never
that...
made it into the minutes? There was like never a
No,
conversation.
but I think the administrator has a degree of, there are some things reserved, the administrative role, when it comes to some of the land maintenance.
Correct, but there still needs to be documentation.
Yeah,
aside from
it's always
this at
been,
the end of it.
Karen used to always have it approved by us, or at least
Right,
not by us,
right,
like
I
this is
feel
what
like
I'm
it was
doing, we're gonna hire,
always
kind of how we discussed with Jim. And
Yeah.
I would think that's what we'd like to do it in the future. I mean, obviously, we would
that's
trust you
the
to
way
set
I
something like this up, and we
would
could do it by us.
continue.
Right, but for this case right here, whereas legally we might not have to pay this person, if the conversation did take place and it would seem like he wouldn't have just made it up, ethically I would feel better, especially if we do have the money in the budget to settle this debt and then just know going forward. You know, we'll, like he said, we'll call him if we want any, you know, anything further done, not to just keep going, but it would seem like settle the invoice, especially if there was work done. And this guy, I would have a hard time thinking he would just make this up.
The cutting did happen.
Yeah.
The cutting did happen.
Right.
Right, it's whether the price was agreed upon.
Yeah,
The scope of
I
work
don't
was
know.
agreed upon, and, you know, I do lots of work. I don't generate any invoices, right? So I would ask, you know, is the town in a position to issue some type of gift letter that he can use, you know, an itemized tax deduction situation? You know, you're volunteering your time and effort to maintain a conservation land.
Kind, yeah.
I do it all the time. I'm not generating bills, so rather than pay real money, depending on what the obligation is, obviously.
That's why it's hard not knowing what was
Right.
agreed upon.
So, well, you're still not gonna know what's agreed upon, never mind.
Yeah, no,
Never mind, continue.
No, you're perfectly fine.
My question would be about the process. So let's say in the future
Yep.
that you know, met someone and said, okay, could you do this for us? And, okay, there's just an agreement, it's 500, let's say, right? And none of us know about it, and then the person comes to you and you just write a check? There's no check, there's no balance?
There should be.
Right, so there was.
No, I'm not saying you're gonna do this, but I'm talking about,
Right.
what is the procedure we need to put in
So
place? Because otherwise, that would've just been paid,
Right,
and it could have never come through.
right. So and when I thought, I wasn't sure what this letter had to do with at first. And then it was clarified and I said, I was literally baffled that there was no paper trail,
Yeah.
there was
Yes.
no written document, because
Yeah.
I even like tonight, if there's any sort of yes, no
Right,
to
right,
any
right.
form of a
Document.
project, I document it, one.
Paperwork, yeah.
Two, even if I have that verbal conversation with someone, I will confirm with them and say, but this isn't official, I don't want you acting on this until I get the confirmation from the commission. Because as much as I'm the administrator for the commission, we're a team in the sense that we all need to be on the same page.
Right.
And anything moving forward, with the Jim Henderson, maintaining the same property. Now, another member of the commission is thinking, oh, well, we still need to maintain this property because it's not maintained, whether he or
Right,
she
it
drives
needs to
by
be
it every day or not.
transparent.
Right, it
Yeah.
just, that's how I work, and that's
Right,
how
right,
you can trust me, and I'm
Oh,
hoping I'm doing that trust.
it's not
But
about
that's
not
what
trusting
it's
you or
going
trusting
to
you, but
be, yeah.
what
To expect.
procedure, or what can we put in place to make sure that,
I can write up a little thing and then send it out, and
I
Just
guess
have it.
that's not the question I'm asking. So let's say you paid it. If you just paid it, right, is there some other check in place through the town of Bolton that ensures that when something like that gets paid, that it's legit? I don't know how else to
So
to
that's
not
where the
say to-
paper
to-
trail
you
would
know.
come
A
in.
purchase order would be necessary, it seems, right after that, you know.
So I have yet to deal with this, to be honest.
Yeah,
So this is,
Yeah.
and that's why I want to talk to Ninotchka or Donna about it,
yeah.
to sort of clarify that, because maybe if I had not, for some reason, thought that way and said, can you pay this? And just didn't think anything of it, just handed them the mail that I had opened, given it to them and said, can you pay this bill for us? One, I was told by Linda, when I spoke to her about it, she said she wouldn't even accept this because there's no dates on it. Second, there's no paper trail in terms of an agreement, so I think she wouldn't even accepted it that way either. So I think that's where the other check and balance comes
Okay,
in.
good.
That being said, though, as far as it being legit beyond that, like if there were, literally just thinking to the absolute extreme here, and personally, I would never do anything like this, but the absolute extreme, if there were some sort of a fake paper trail, you can't control that, and I
Yeah.
think that's where the check and balance would fall out of place.
Yeah, but it's still going to Linda.
It still goes to, not Linda, it goes to the town's treasurer for the
Okay.
accountant,
Okay.
which is
Somebody who
not
has a
sure
check and
about.
balance
Yes,
system.
and they're the ones
Right.
who, when I,
Flagging and.
yeah, right. So that's that, so I will get that information for you and then, proceed that way. Any more questions on maintenance and invoices
Just
that we
curious.
get?
The pricing on that, did that seem normal? I shouldn't say normal, but did it seem within what we would normally pay within the range? Seemed a little, right, yeah.
It seemed what?
It seemed a little high.
It did. However, after speaking, and he did explain, when I called him and told him everything,
Yeah.
he did explain that the equipment he used, and his equipment is obviously different from Jim Henderson's, who's sort of someone who does it all the time.
Yeah.
His, he just sort of has in the yard. And it takes more time to get the project done, along with unclogging I'm gonna say, for lack
There
of
you go.
exact explanation. And that's sort of a labor-intensive thing. It's still a little high, but that's how he was explaining it, basically. But again, that's up for the commission.
Yeah,
I
no,
don't-
it's, I would hate to think that somebody had agreed to something with him.
And that's, I don't know if the pricing, and if the pricing's on the maps, I don't know. I don't know, I haven't seen it. This is all I know, and I was baffled when I even opened it. And actually Jackie was here when I opened it, and she said, I don't know. She just said, I don't know.
Well, thank you for bringing it up.
Yeah.
Well, again, I involve everyone and make sure we're all on the same page and going forward, either if we continue land maintenance with either Jim Henderson or someone else, it's relevant that these sort of things come up. I don't know the past, and when this sort of thing comes out of the past, I have to deal with it, and I need guidance on how to deal with it. I'll just leave it at that. The next order of business, so, and this is one of the things that has taken up a little bit of my time this week, in terms of not typing up the budget, but I told you what it's gonna be, and I'll show you the formalized. So I received, well, the Conservation Trust received a concern, I'm gonna say, from a resident on Long Hill, saying that there was gonna be tree cutting, and they're cutting the property. So I assumed it wasn't on the property and that it was on the conservation property. Am I correct in saying, am I thinking of this correctly?
Yeah,
Okay.
phone call came in, then an email was generated.
Right, so I received the email.
I looked at the address, realized that it was not trust property, that the closest thing to this address was Danforth. Because the initial complaint was that cutting was happening on conservation land. So that when we looked at the address of the homeowner and we looked at the GIS map, it went from the trust to the town through me to Rebecca.
Right. So, that all aside, I went out, and that's the reason for being out on Danforth, walked up the pipeline a little bit because it was reported around the pipeline. And while being out there, didn't notice anything, and then heard chainsaws and saw some machinery. So, came to the conclusion, after speaking with them, seeing the forestry cutting plan, there has been timber harvesting that's begun on a property off of Long Hill Road that extends across the pipeline. And
Not on
So-
Danforth.
not in Danforth. Right, so it's right outside of Danforth.
Easement, follow that.
Right, so it's along the pipeline easement
Yeah.
over where the exact resource area is. I think there's a stream that runs through there. And then up the hill a little bit. But anyways, while I was there, I checked in. We did receive the forestry plan. It's obviously very far past the commentary period, which is 10 days from when we receive it. This is one that had been received prior to me being here. So it's commenced and it's been approved by the DCR. But just in case there are any other calls or any other concerns that come in. That being said, the actual concern was on this individual's property. And they will be removing trees that are allocated in the easement, along with being exempt from the Wetland Protection Act because it's related to maintaining utilities.
So the gas pipeline goes through the homeowner's property.
Yes, exactly. And he wanted, this is happening tomorrow. And this was sort of a back and forth thing that was going on. And because of this individual was quite upset that they'll be removing trees, understandably. And I say that it's not in our jurisdiction. And I also told Jeff to share with the Conservation Trust that it's not in our jurisdiction and it's within the easement, so they're well within their right to maintain that property as appropriate by the easement and the exemption. This individual requested me or a commission member to be on the property during the project. I talked to Don just to confirm that it's not in our jurisdiction and we have no reason to be there. He confirmed it, so in case anyone, in case it comes up, if there's a complaint, that's why we aren't there. And this is 399 Long Hill. And then, so 148, so this was the property that Bob Pace had come in to just say he was using the old order of conditions. I went out, part of the order of conditions states, just confirming where the well is proposed, matches where it's stated on the plan. It's very clear. And then as far as erosion controls go, they're up and even double enforced, which I sort of said, great, excellent, I love it. And then he also gave me which I can email to everyone, as of right now, the work being done, I don't know if he's continuing through winter or not, but the work schedule for, preparing the area to dig the well when the digging comes, and then once they put up the permanent structure and when they start digging more where they might need additional erosion control up further on the property, which is away from the resource area, but we still, in the order of conditions, said may need additional erosion control. I think it was under Carol, maybe it was even before, I need to double check, but anyway, so he will contact me for that erosion control site visit, and I will notify all of you. There's nothing new on the Taylor enforcement order. On the DePietro enforcement order, I have reached out to him via email to sort of just ask him to come in. There's a new town administrator, give me a call, give me an email. I would like to talk to you about the resources on your property. I understand there's been discrepancies. I didn't say this in the email, but I'm saying this to you. I understand there's been discrepancies in the past. There's been discrepancies with Stowe. I have fresh eyes coming into this, taking into consideration, of course, the history of what has been going on, but contacting him to try and solve the problem, not by the way it seems to be going. So basically, if he were to come in and file with us, we'd be all set. As of right now, there was another phone call, which I thought you were in the email, but you weren't, because you weren't on the phone call, about the DePietro enforcement order, DEP. I have the whole list of everyone on there. I don't know why I didn't type it, but DEP, Natural Heritage, Stowe, DEP's lawyer, our law committee, or our attorney.
Yeah, the town council.
Yeah, representative was on the phone call as well. DEP had not and has not issued an enforcement order, and basically because of they have a smaller staff and they have a lot of other basically immediate concerns that they have to take care of, said that it may be a while, didn't specify what a while was in terms of filing, and began a discussion of our town leading further potential legal measures, and working towards that. So we've been working on a timeline and just preparing things in case it does come to that discussion. And I've spoken with Don about it just to run it by him and just update him on the matter, and so he just wants to see the summary and everything to go over it.
So is the next step, does that occur when DEP has the time? Is that when it
So
starts to
what? So what the next step is, as of right now, and I'm hoping for something different because I don't think anyone wants to deal with
Yeah,
this.
give him a chance to respond to you.
Yep. And if anyone has his phone number, please let me have it, because I could not find it. Because I was going to reach out via phone as well and just leave a message, same sort of thing. But in terms of the next step, as of right now, like I said, we're preparing ourselves to have it be presented to the law committee on their next meeting date. which I need to double check with Don, but he told me that. And present it to them, and then they will sort of help us with the next steps. Our attorney and town council, the representative from town council that was on the phone call, will be also writing up a list of next steps to sort of advise the town on how we're gonna go about approaching this. But it would be to Superior Court, basically. He does have the enforcement orders issued by our town, and then aside from that, fact Stowe. There are not fines attached to the enforcement order in Bolton. Stowe has been fining, so that's up to the commission as well if we want to start ticketing. I would, in the perfect world, now that I've reached out, if he responds, again, if he files, no reason to go to court, no problem. And we go through this like any other meeting. And we go over the resources with him, whether he comes in informally or formally. And then we basically just fill out an NOI for the work he's done already and the work he is proposing to do, if there is any. But so that's sort of where that lies now in terms of after the phone call and talking to the different stakeholders along with talking to the town administrator.
So you shouldn't go out there by yourself, you know that, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
I don't know if Kathy and Stowe has his phone number.
She does. She gave me his email.
Okay, okay, I was like, yeah, I mean, it seems like we should talk to the legal counsel, see what they say for next steps. I'm grateful that you came out with fresh eyes, because give them another chance, we tried it before.
And it's not even another, it is another chance, but how I see it is, it's a new administrator, and not saying it had any effect on it, but it might even be something to do with an administrator from Stowe, and now issuing something from Bolton, but it's the same individual. It may be something related to that. I don't know the reason why he has yet filed, but I'm hoping now that I've reached out and noted that I'm the new person, that we'll see what happens. But
so I would say give him that opportunity to respond to you. At some point then, we might want to start finding, because we have kind of been putting that off for a while and have not had a response when we do have letters out to him from previous administrations. But giving him every opportunity to respond to Rebecca and come out would seem to make sense to me. I don't really feel like pushing him for any reason. I'd rather give him the opportunity just to step forward now.
Agreed.
Make it fresh and easy. If by our next meeting you really haven't heard back.
yeah, that's sort of where the time frame is.
Yeah,
Yep.
then, you know, it might be time to start issuing those citations.
The minute you issue a citation, at some point you have to collect on it. And so if there's a track record of no response and we start issuing citations, they're just gonna pile up. There's a certain point where, are we gonna say, oh, okay, you don't have to worry about the citations because after 4 months, you're now here and we're gonna let those go?
So with not let those go, he would still have to, he can.
And I'm not
I
saying
need
we
to relook
shouldn't
at the
issue
process.
this.
No,
Right,
what I'm
right,
saying,
right.
he has the opportunity to appeal, I believe.
Right.
And in the chance he does not, and those tickets have been issued and he responds after they start being issued, so after the time frame that we say, okay, we'll give him a little bit of response time. So by our next meeting, if we choose to issue tickets, by that time, he's already been given the opportunity for a new filing under, not a new filing, a new representative speaking with him and going through the process. And if we choose to begin issuing the tickets, and then he comes in to file afterwards without the appeal, he still is required to pay those fees, even though he is filed with us, just to clarify. And then also,
No, I guess my point is that
to make a decision that we're going to issue them is a big decision, because we then have to collect, and there's already a track record of inactivity, response, and so it's just we just need to be careful.
Right.
That's just my feeling.
How big the threat? What are you doing?
Right, and if it comes to litigation too, the courts may be able to compel them to pay too, depending. Or, or mitigate it as part of a settlement to say, will the town be willing to forego part of that or write part of that off? Be willing to participate in the whole process, yeah.
2 sets of tickets, which, because he'd be getting them from Stowe and Bolton.
So, yes, so to clarify on that, after speaking to Kathy and her giving me her timeline, and then we're gonna add to it, with the files that we have in Bolton, or rather just clarify her timeline, because she didn't have them right in front of her. In Stowe, after the enforcement, they had been regularly issuing tickets and fees, I think each day following that enforcement order.
Business day, yeah.
That was appealed and taken to court and was waived, the fees were waived due to whatever the court finding was, which I'm sure is in the timeline. So I forget if Kathy said that they're still issuing fees. I want to say that they are not. But, and I think that's sort of why now it seems it's up to us to take this on, and that's why I'm trying to not set back the clock in any way, but just
Going with a gentle approach first.
Right, not even a gentle approach, but just a responsible approach in that I'm a new individual coming to the table in terms of this specific property owner. And with that, I want to give him the opportunity to reach out, and a respectful opportunity to respect respond and respect the Wetland Protection Act, what we have for resources, what he has for resources, and the importance of it to Bolton, just as a town. And I think that's the responsible way to go about it. And if you would like actions to be done sooner than later, that's something, you can agree on and let me know, but I just feel that that's giving enough time, but little time to have him respond if he does, and if he doesn't, then we have our next steps.
Seems so recent. And we've heard nothing new on Taylor, and that's still natural heritage, basically.
Yeah, we're still waiting on that. I think.
You sure?
Yeah.
Is there any recipes you'd like to put out to the audience before we go? You sure? Oh, preheat the oven. All right. I'd like to make a motion that we officially bring to a close the, what are we, November 17th meeting of the Bolton Conservation Commission. All right, all those in favor? Aye. So closed. Good night.